Hi everyone. Well, this is strange, isn't it? Judy and I were really looking forward to coming and being with you tomorrow on Sunday. I'm recording this on Saturday, but obviously we can't do that. And it was suggested that I might share what I was planning to say tomorrow by video, and so that's what we're going to have a go at doing. So I've never done this before, so I hope it doesn't come across in too wooden a fashion, but I've put a clean shirt on and Judy's applied my makeup, so just joking. So we should be ready to go. So we're going to give it a go and see how we do. And it's really nice to speak to you, even if I can't see you. So what I'm going to do first of all is read some words from the Bible, and I'm going to read from Philippians chapter 3. Really well-known words of testimony from the Apostle Paul, verse 10, and this is what he says. I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of sharing in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow to attain to the resurrection from the dead. Not that I've already attained all this or have already been made perfect, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. Brothers, I don't consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenwards in Christ Jesus. Well, let's just pray for a moment, shall we, before I say anything else. Lord, this is a kind of odd way of doing things, but thank you that you can communicate all kinds of ways, and I pray that the words that I speak now will be from you and will be of help to some of us who are listening to this morning. So I pray this now in your name. Amen. Well, I want to mention the names of three people, one of whom I think you'll know, but two I think you might not. And here are the three names: Billy Graham, Chuck Templeton, and Bron Clifford. Now, those three men in 1945 were all up-and-coming young preachers, but it was the two that we probably haven't heard of who were really filling all the auditoriums and were regarded at that moment as being the bright hope of the future. And yet, within 5 years, Chuck Templeton had given up his faith and he had become a radio and TV broadcaster. And Bron Clifford, by 1955, had lost everything. And he died in a rundown motel of alcohol poisoning just on the outskirts of Amarillo, Texas. Now they're obviously pretty dramatic stories, aren't they? And maybe more dramatic than any we've known. But all of us are aware, aren't we, of people who have started out as really keen Christians, but then have along the way fallen away. They probably are people in our own families, and certainly people amongst our friends. And we're very sad when that happens, aren't we? And this is what I really want to talk about this morning, today. Long time ago, I read a book about Christian discipleship, and it had one of the chapters was called Maintaining the Glow, and it was a translation of a verse in Romans 12, and it's a phrase that's always stuck in my memory. And that's what I want to speak to us about, how we can maintain the glow as Christians. And I think at this particular moment, it's especially important. I think it's important because of the situation that we're in right now in our country and in the world. It's a very difficult time, isn't it? But amazingly, already, seems to me the church is having more opportunities to make an impact on the world around us than normal. So this is a really important time for Christians to be shining. And it's particularly true for all of you at Evan as well, because you're about to welcome Matthew as your new pastor. It's a new start. How wonderful it will be for all of you if when he comes, the church family is alive and vibrant in their faith, if we're all maintaining the glow. So that's what I want to talk about. Probably most of what I'm going to say you've heard before, and but there may be some things that will be of help and value to us. So first of all, I just want to talk about a few things to look out for. The first thing is this: let's watch out for the weak spots. Watch out for the weak spots. All of us have areas of vulnerability, don't we? Things that we know, if we're not careful, will spoil our friendship with Jesus. I know that there are things that it would be better for me not to do, places not to go, things not to see, things not to read, if I'm going to keep my faith really vibrant. Traditionally, the three great snares are money, sex and power, aren't they? We know that all these three things have trapped people and taken them away from their friendship with Jesus. Some of them are just wrong. Others there's nothing wrong with them at all, unless they get too much emphasis in our lives, unless we give too much priority to them. David said, didn't he, that he asked God to search his heart and to examine him. And we don't want to be overly introspective about this, but it is a good thing to just keep a check on ourselves and to make sure that things are not crowding out our friendship with Jesus. Now, many years ago when I started going out with Judy, my priorities changed. There were things that I was doing before which suddenly became less important because I wanted to spend as much time with her as I could. And that's a good model to have, isn't it? Let's make sure that our friendship with Jesus is our priority. It's a way to keep the flame burning, to keep the glow. So that's the first thing. Second thing I want to say is this: to watch out for vulnerable times. All of us have times when it's going to be harder for us to stay strong and to maintain the glow. So here are just a few of them. So loss is one of those times, isn't it? Maybe a family member dying or a loss in some other way. Loss can unsettle us. It makes us lonely. Change can be difficult. Maybe retirement, maybe moving house. When familiar landmarks go, that can unsettle us. Disappointment, when things go wrong. We can let go of things that up until now have seemed really important to us. Tiredness is another problem, isn't it? We don't make good decisions when we're tired. And even success is can be a problem because we can then stop being dependent on God. When we're in a vulnerable time, and maybe some of us feel that we're in a vulnerable time right now, this is the time when you need other Christians, you need your church family around you. You need to draw on their support. When you can't pray, you need other people to pray for you. What often happens when people are in a difficult time is that they withdraw from their church family, and that's the very worst thing that we should do. So when we're in vulnerable times, don't be nervous, don't be shy of calling in as much support as you can get, because that's when we need it most. Well, let's think of some things we can do now to maintain the glow. I think it was Martin Luther who said that you can't stop the birds circling around your head, but you can stop them landing in your hair. All of us have temptations and face challenging things sometimes. And so here's the first thing I want to say about what we can do. And it's simply this: flee from danger. Flee from danger. I guess the classic story here is Joseph and Potiphar's wife. We all know what Joseph did when she was trying to seduce him, that he didn't stop and think. He got out of the place as quickly as he could. There are times to stand firm, but there are also times to run away. And when we're in danger, it's the time to do it. We know, don't we, that the only real safe time to stop something that's going to lead us into danger is right at the beginning. Sometimes we can think, well, let's just enjoy this for a while. We can put it right later, but it becomes harder and harder. Someone has said this: sin will take you further than you wish to go. Sin will keep you longer than you wanted to stay. Sin will cost you more than you wanted to pay. How many times have we said, you and I, people say, if only I had known? So let's make sure that if we're in danger, we flee from it. Now, all of us have times in our lives when God is really close, when things are going brilliantly, when it's easy to rejoice and to have joy in our faith. And then there are other times when it's much more difficult and when it's harder. And these are times when we can either draw closer to God or move away from him. And so here's the next thing that I want to say. And these words aren't mine. I wish they were in a way. But these are the words that when I've used them, I think have been most help to people who have heard them. So here it is: never doubt in the dark what you knew in the light. Never doubt in the dark what you knew in the light. When you're in the dark, it's not a good time to make decisions. When you're in the dark, you're vulnerable. When we're in the dark, this is the time to draw on all those promises of God that have been so important to us and all the things that God has done in our lives. We all have moments, don't we, when we know we've had them in our lives, when we know beyond a doubt that God is real and that God is with us. And when we're in the dark, this is the time to draw on those memories, to draw on what God has done, to hold fast because of the promises and what God has done in our life. And as I said just now, this may be one of those times for us. Some of us may be feeling that we're in the darkness at the moment, and let's hold on to what God has done. Let's hold on to all those things that you know that he's done for you. Let's hold on to the promises that he's made, not just about the past, but about the future as well. Never doubt in the dark what you knew in the light. I don't know if this story is true, but there is a story that is told about the Australian outback. Apparently there is a road leading out of Sydney into the bush. It's just a track really, and there is a sign as you leave the suburbs and go onto the track, and it says this: choose your rut carefully, you'll be in it for the next 1,000 miles. It is easy, isn't it, for us as Christians to get a bit stuck in a rut. It's very easy, I think, particularly for those of us who've been Christians for a long time. It can be possible for us, isn't it, to think, well, we've seen it all, we know it all, we've experienced it all, and for us to become stuck. And when that happens, although we don't stop being Christians, it's very easy for the flame to go out, isn't it? It's very easy for us just to be following routines. And so this is the next thing I want to say. How do we keep the glow going? How do we maintain the glow? And it's simply this: keep your commitment to growing. Keep your commitment to growing. This is the reason I chose those words from Philippians that I read to you just now. I mean, here is Paul, the great apostle. He is famous, he's a church planter, he's a great Christian leader. And yet here he is in these very intimate words to a church that he has planted, telling them how he hasn't arrived yet, how he needs to keep growing, and how he will never give up in his desire to keep changing so that he gets to know Jesus better and becomes more like him. In the last few years, Judy and I have been in a new church, and it's a great church to be in. It's a very exciting church. But there are some things that are new for us. Sometimes there's perhaps a greater emphasis on what God might do now than we've been used to. And sometimes that's quite challenging, but it's been really good for us. It's been really good because it keeps us growing and changing and developing. And so I want to say to all of us, especially those of us who have been Christians for a long time, let's never get proud. Let's never think that we know it all or that we've experienced it all. Let's stay humble, and let's keep learning, let's keep growing, let's keep reading our Bibles, let's keep talking to God, let's keep expecting great things from him. This is the way to maintain the glow. Keep your commitment to growing. And there's one other thing that I want to say to us now, and it's this: keep your commitment to serving. Now, Paul said, didn't he, that he talked, I think, to the Galatians, don't get tired of being good, of doing good. And, he obviously said this because people did get tired sometimes of doing good. Many of you in this church, I know, have a great record of serving God consistently and faithfully. And of course, there are times when we need to take a break. There are times when we need to do something different. There are times when we need to give way sometimes so that other people can develop the gifts that we've been able to develop. But what we shouldn't do ever is lose our commitment to serving. Of course we serve, don't we, primarily for the benefit of others. But there's no doubt about it that when we're serving as Christians, we grow as well, don't we? Often, I think many people would say that they grow most when they're serving God together with other Christians. So let's not ever lose our commitment to serving. Let's not ever get to the point where we just give up and where we stop. It's a way to maintain the glow. Years ago, we used to sing, "There's a work for Jesus only you can do." And I believe that that is still true. So let's not ever lose our commitment to serving. It's a way of maintaining the glow. And let me just finish by saying one other thing. It is important, isn't it, that we know that staying strong, maintaining the glow, doesn't mean that we live perfect or unblemished lives. Let's think about some of the great people in the Bible. Some of them only went God's way later in life. Some of them were considered complete failures in midlife. Some who finished strong found themselves in tough situations that were not of their own making. And some of them had to overcome personal failure and really big setbacks. So maintaining the glow doesn't mean that we'll never fail. It doesn't mean that we'll never get things wrong. But there is always, isn't there, with God, this opportunity to start again and to start from where we are. So whatever's happened in the past, maybe you've messed up along the way somewhere. Maybe you feel you're going through you've lost some of that first passion and enthusiasm that you had. We can always restart again because of God's grace. So let me just finish like this. It's never too late to get back on track. And I want to read you now some more words from the Apostle Paul. We read some from Philippians earlier on, and here he is writing in 2 Timothy, really near the end of his life, and famous words that he says, I've fought the good fight, I've finished the race, I've kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on the day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. I would love it if those words could be said of me at the end of my life. Wouldn't it be great if that could be said for all of us here in this church, for everyone who is hearing this? So let's make this our commitment, shall we? Let's be committed to maintaining the glow. Well, if you've got through to the end, thank you for listening to this. I really hope that it won't be long before we are able to see you in person again. But in the meantime, stay calm, stay safe, and God bless you